Kev, thanks for joining us. We join you here at the end of a very successful season once again. We've asked the fans and they have come with their questions. We start off with the first one. Will there be an improvement on facilities like the bar next season?
We're continually trying to improve, but obviously we've got the parameters we have to work within, which is two things: generally space, money, and we're not the finished article in many areas, but yeah, we'll continually look at improving the number of outlets, catering outlets, the bars. It's not always not been able to open, it's not always been able to staff it, because of illness and various other things. So there was one game last year where literally we had two people who helped us out on the day, and I did see someone had a moan. Well, don't moan, offer to help out, simple as that. Anybody can help out, open a can of beer. So yeah, we'll continually keep improving, and there's another outlet, catering outlet, coming on board. I think we're going to plan to open both the bars, our own bars, and then I'll be speaking to Rob about a draft bar, but I think it needs to be a bit smaller, and too much of a risk having 24 taps when we might have bad weather. Hopefully not next year.
No, of course. Someone else asked, what grading does the ground now hold? Will it be enough to get in the playoffs for the next season?
Not yet, no. That's something that we continually work on. For 10 years we were told 500 covered seats by the ground grading people from level below and the level below that, but that wasn't correct. It was 500 covered seats, but in a minimum of 4 rows for the National League. So all our planning and all the work Brian did over a number of years, we then had to suddenly throw that out the window and replan, and as you see, we're getting sorted, but it's very hard to do things when you're trying to play football as well. So, but yeah, we'll continually keep working, and all being well, by the 31st of March, we'll have things in place. But it's an ongoing thing. It's not just now; it's next year and 2 years. But yeah, everything's in the pipeline.
Yeah, of course. Someone else asked as well. What are the future plans to meet the 4K capacity required for a few years down the line? Obviously, constantly growing as well.
That needs to be done to compete in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that's
a similar question.
Yeah. So the capacity at the moment is 3,033.
Okay. Yeah.
And the aim is obviously 4,000. It isn't a problem to get 4,000 people in here.
Yeah.
The problem is it's got to tick all the boxes and the segregation and all those sorts of things. So, but everything we're working to is aiming to cover us for the next level.
No, of course. Someone else asked a similar question regarding the bar facilities as well. Sort of, obviously, coming from a Step 4 side, sort of not even half a decade ago to now. How has it been sort of adapting to those things and trying to make those changes as quickly as possible?
Yeah, it's quite hard because it's basically a Step 5 ground that we're trying to turn into a Step 1 stadium, and that's quite a big jump. And obviously, when the club moved here first, it was a county league ground, and it's evolved over the years. And obviously, doing what we've done in quite a short space of time does make it harder because we've got a ridiculously long season. I think it's about 6 weeks without any football here or anything going on, so it is really tough. When we laid the concrete path, it shouldn't have been laid because it was so wet, and you can see it's not perfectly level because it was so wet that we just had to get on with it, otherwise we wouldn't have ticked the box for the 31st of March. But it does seem ridiculous to have a 31st of March date when in May we could have done it without putting in ground balls.
No, of course, absolutely. Someone else asked, can we afford a scoreboard, at the very least a digital clock to keep the time on things? I know we've mentioned it before and sort of...
Yeah, no, the simple answer is it's not rugby or cricket. If you can't keep score at football, then I would be a little bit concerned. But ultimately, that isn't part of our plans. That's sort of what I would class as a Step 4 item. We will be one day putting in a proper stadium screen. We've got kindly someone who's going to fund that for us, but we've got to do the groundworks first because we'd look a bit stupid if we put a screen in and then 90% of people couldn't see it. So we've got to really build a new stand that end, create a fan zone, move the changing rooms, move the shop, move the boardroom, move build a ticket office. So everything has to fall in sequence. But a digital scoreboard, most of my icing don't count beyond 90 minutes. So I don't see the point in having those.
Of course.
If I'm ever at a ground and I see it 90 minutes, it stops. Well, the game doesn't stop at 90 minutes. So if you're going to do it, in my opinion, you do it properly. So we want a proper stadium screen, which will ultimately allow us to sell advertising and have a lot more interaction on a match day, rather than something that just says the score. My advice is check your phone. Dan's there doing all the Twitter updates.
I could do with a nice digital scoreboard, so I don't have to keep my stopwatch on.
Well, one day it'll be a proper one, but it's not. That money can be better spent elsewhere at the moment.
Absolutely. I mean, looking towards sort of, there are some questions regarding the squad. Obviously, last season was a very new thing to us, having been the first time we're in step 2 of non-league. Will we have a larger squad for next season? Will there be sort of an extension to the squad?
Hopefully,
coming season.
What I'd say to fans is that, like us, it's thinking outside the box all the time. So when we launch things like the Fantasy League, which was a bit late last year, please enter it, because that money will go straight into the club. There's no cost to it. We've got someone who's kindly offered to set it up for us. I think Exeter have got a great idea. I'm not sure, it's the 1931 club, where fans contribute a small amount per month, and that pays the wages of the number 31 for a season. And little things like that. What we need is everybody to contribute. It's not enough just having the turnstile income. We obviously have to get sponsorship. So every opportunity there is, if you can pay something per month, and I think this is where it leads into the supporters club stroke trust or whatever. At the last forum I suggested that the fans go away and really look to that, because the club in the past maybe would have folded without a supporters club, or something for the supporters to have a voice. And so I think let's get the supporters generating income, generating interest as well in the club, because there's only so many hours in the day where we can all do it. So, and when there are things that can help, and I'm pretty certain, I think Weymouth generated about 200,000 over 12 years from that fantasy league.
Okay, fantastic.
That you can imagine that's the players' wages for a season. Not giving away how much we pay players.
I mean, someone else mentioned sort of the links with the colleges and sort of the player pathways as well. Do you think that's something that will sort of come back in again? There wasn't too much opportunity to sort of
we've
capitalise on that
got a
this
meeting
year.
next week. To be quite honest, the trouble is the higher you go, the further you are away from youth football. That's the problem, and other local football. That is a real issue, and I think it's something now more and more pro clubs don't have under 21s. So I think that shows it's academies and then first team, because when 98-99% of second year pros get released, that shows you that there's so much money invested. At 18, pro clubs are generally going to know who they think is going to make it. So obviously they're putting them out on loan to non-league clubs, which gets them to man up. And the gap is so wide, and really the Somerset Cup is the only opportunity to play people. But again, we know that competition needs a massive revamp and a huge rethink, because it's ridiculous that we're not playing league games because of the Premier Cup, and that's the same for right across the country. We lost the Eastbourne game God knows how many times, not just because of the weather. I think they had to play County Cup tie twice and it was postponed. Even on a 3G it was postponed, I think, during the frozen weather. So it's something that needs to be looked at. But in terms of standard, it'll get harder and harder to play 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. Obviously in the Southern League there was a League Cup as well, so that was a good opportunity.
Yeah, of course.
Now we've just literally got the Premier Cup, which starts in September, I think, and finishes in May. Ridiculous, with 4 or 5 rounds. So please Somerset FA, please National FA, have a look at county cups, because they're a very big thing of the past, and I think it sort of actually affects clubs in getting league games played.
No, of course, absolutely. I mean, a very similar question in the sense of How are the relations with sort of local EFL clubs? Sort of
Really good. This game is difficult. Everything sort of changed. I don't know if that's COVID. I don't know. Obviously coming out of COVID, everybody was quite euphoric and excited, and then we've had lots of other issues that have happened subsequently: energy crisis and profiteering. That's what I class it as. The cost of everything is ridiculous. And there's a lot of doom and gloom, and I think it's probably affecting professional football maybe as much as non-league football. And I think personally that's why non-league football is very, very strong. You've only got to look at Step 1, the National League, how many massive clubs there are there, even losing Wrexham and Notts County. Some really, really big clubs in that league. Some really big clubs in National League South this year as well.
Yeah.
But what constitutes a big club? You're only as good as your last performance. It's a very simple thing in sport.
I mean, someone mentioned a question about the coaching team. Obviously, Lloyd Irish coming on as well, and sort of a shuffle with Michael Meeker leaving, Connor Sidley Adams coming in as the head coach.
Yeah.
Obviously Michael Meeker leaving first, but what were the decisions bringing in Connor and Lloyd into the or shuffling their roles?
Yeah, Lloyd and Connor sort of almost did a lot of those roles anyway. Connor was stepping up, Meeks, through commitments elsewhere with his business. He missed quite a few games last year, so naturally it was a natural step for Connor to step up into that role, and that's his job. He's a full-time coach at SGS, so and Lloyd, you probably couldn't get anyone better, to be the goalie coach, because when he's the number 2, he's almost the goalie coach anyway. So he's working obviously with the keepers, and he's still damn good keeper. He's still good enough to be our number 2, as he proved in several games last season. And obviously we were very lucky to secure Jack for the season. And all being well, we've secured someone for next season as well.
Perfect to hear. A few questions just regarding sort of behind the scenes again. Someone asks, similar to the Peacocks, the junior Peacocks, will there be sort of a club membership scheme for adults, sort of with the ticketing? Obviously, with some games, maybe they won't be able to get season tickets, but it sort of gives them an opportunity to get tickets to the bigger games as well.
Yeah, we obviously, my advice, as I've been saying, is get a season ticket, because I think we could be at capacity for Torquay and Yeovil. Excuse me, I think those games could sell out. We've obviously just about to launch something which is quite exciting to make it easier for us to do, for fans to do business with us, home and away fans. So it's hard to do everything we want to do, but we're always looking at offers. We did an offer last year and the weather scuppered that. With the Dulwich game, we did a discount offer, but we still honoured it. There's possibly things like a 4-4-3 deal where you buy 4 tickets but you pay for 3, 2 Saturdays, 2 Tuesdays. That'll be a post-Christmas thing. Whether we do the half-season ticket, I'm not sure. It went actually really well last year. I'm hoping last year, we can throw out the window in terms of, the weather, and obviously, sadly, the Queen dying, and that affected the game, and there were so many really odd factors last year that I don't think any of us were expecting. This is Great Britain. We know the weather's going to be unpredictably unpredictable, and it's just difficult. But we do everything we can to try and do the best we can. Offer some incentives, and it's National League football. What a great division to be in this year. So if you can't get to every game, we may do discounts, but obviously I'm putting a profit and loss forecast together based on certain factors, which is bringing in a certain amount of money.
No, of course.
Because the players need to be paid, and as I say, this is as close to professional football as we've ever been at, and everything costs more money.
Absolutely. I mean, someone comes up with a question of I know the community trust do a few things within school holidays and stuff, but what are the club will the club move into having more of a presence within holidays and weekends?
We've got a schools coordinator, and that is really opening up a communication link with all the schools in Somerset, the whole of Somerset, and we've got another person who's a head teacher who's a season ticket holder. So we're trying to use people that work within schools. basically, because it's very hard for us to go in and say, oh, we'll do a coaching session. You know, it's more than that. On match days, we're looking at maybe doing something, partnering with someone that can perhaps do like a fun session. I haven't spoken to the YMCA yet, but they've got a small-sided 3G just over the road. So we're looking at, can we do something for birthday parties, or for just parents to register kids. They get an hour, the parents can come in here, spend some money, have a drink, have something to eat, and then the kids hopefully are tired out after running around for an hour, but then come and watch the match, and a whole package where they get a drink, food, and the football fun. So there's lots of things. Junior Peacock Club, we're going to keep going, but build it into the season ticket now.
Yeah.
And there's lots of ideas with those things. Say we've got the ideas. There's one thing I've always needed here, and that's 36-hour days. Yeah. But unfortunately, they never seem to exist.
No, of course. I mean, someone else asked about sort of the fan engagement as a whole. I mean, sort of similar answer again, I guess, with that one. And then the grand final question is, what is your favourite cheese, Kevin Sturmey?
That's a hard one, that, really. I like all cheese, really.
Yeah.
I don't like garlicky cheese, but Stilton, Brie, cheddar. Like my cheese.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's easier saying what you don't like than what you do like there.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, not many. I'm trying to think. Say I don't like the. Kerry bought some black cheese the other day. No. Yeah, it was really strong. It looked like black pudding, but Kerry, my wife, will eat anything. But that's a great question, though.
Yeah. Well, it's brilliant speaking to you, Kev. Obviously, hopefully that's answered a few questions for the fans as well. I mean, I know we will be having fan forums and stuff throughout the season. I know we're trying to increase that as well.
Yeah.
But absolute pleasure to speak to you, Kevin. I'm sure we'll catch up again very soon.
And my door's always open. If people ever want to ask a question, just send me an email and say we're going to hopefully get a fans forum in June.
Yeah, of course, absolutely brilliant.
Thanks, Dan.
Cheers, thank you.
Cheers, mate.